Okay, hey everybody, hello, welcome. This is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman. This is our 45th, count 'em, 45 Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition gathering, Zoom call. We're engineered by Mike Hurst and Steve Crusoe. I'm a co-convener with Joel Siegel. We have a dynamite lineup today. Very, very powerful stuff. We are gonna take off the next 2 weeks. We have Passover coming up next Monday and Easter Monday after that. So, but there's gonna be a ton going on, and you will get emails and notifications from me. Joel Siegel will be leading the charge, and we're gonna be hearing a lot about this with him and James Fukuda, Ray McClendon, and more people who are gonna talk about GLORIA. We're gonna talk about launching this Save Our Democracy campaign. It's a big deal. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the details. Joel is gonna lead that today. We'll lay it all out for you. And then for the next 2 weeks, as I say, we got Passover next week and Easter after that. And we will be rocking and rolling with a whole new set of stuff. So I will be sending you emails. And again, we will reconvene on April 12th. April 12th will be our next Zoom call, and we will have a whole new campaign laid out to discuss and work through. So hopefully Lindsey Graham won't blow up the world. In the meantime, to my listeners at Progressive Radio Network, welcome. This is the GREEP Zoom call, number 45. You're on my Solartopia Green Power and Wellness slot. And I will have different shows for you the next 2 weeks, actually, and we will reconvene this fantastic Zoom call. We've already got 80 people on, for God's sake, so we're going to continue with a whole new level of campaigning in 2 weeks. Okay, I did want to mention we have a great filmmaker on with us. Mark Kitchell has joined us. Mark, I hope you're still there. You've been in and out. Mark has made a fabulous film called Berkeley in the 60s. I don't know how many of you seen Berkeley in the 60s. I know most of you are too young. Of course, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. But this film about Berkeley in the 60s is one of the truly great films. And Mark is doing a major rollout now. So here he's just coming back in.
Very good.
Mark Kitchell, just say hi to everybody. If you'll put in the chat about your magnificent films. I see Ruthie Sackheim there. Now you two are related, so put in the chat how to get your films. And you've got one on called Green Fire, which is also a great film. My favorite is Berkeley in the 60s, and you're waving your hand there. So put it in the chat if you would, okay? It's
in the chat.
Okay. Mark, you and Ruth here in San Francisco, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. But please put your thing in the chat. Also want to acknowledge Tatanka Bricka. We were talking in the kibitz time about the importance of the appointment of Deb Haaland or Holland to the Secretary of Interior. And as a historian, I have to say, this is a mega historic moment. The idea of an indigenous woman running the Department of Interior, which includes the Bureau of Indian Affairs, is staggering. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was established in 1824 by John Calhoun, who was one of the most reactionary and powerful politicians in all of America. He was a tremendously powerful proponent of slavery, and an all-around terrible guy. And he is the one who established the Department of Interior. And I hope to God that he is flipping in his grave to see an indigenous woman now taking over the department. Tatanka, do you want to say a couple of words before we go to Joel Siegel and Gloria and James and Ray about the new campaign? Can you tell us a couple of words about what it means to the indigenous community to have Deb Haaland running the Bureau of Indian Affairs? I mean, she's the real deal. You know, there are liberals out there who like, okay, they're a progressive. Deb Haaland is in a whole other world of activism. She is absolutely incredibly powerful. So, Tatanka, can you give us a couple words on this?
Deb Haaland is an amazing woman, and as you say, this is history in the making. What I wasn't aware of is all the responsibility that resides within that Department of the Interior. I knew about lands, I knew about public water, I knew about national parks, I knew about indigenous affairs, but there's literally about 7 sub-cabinet positions within that, some real surprising ones. So I told Harvey, Danny Sheehan, General Counsel, Constitutional Attorney for Romero Institute out of Santa Cruz, California, formerly the Christic Institute, as part of our weekly Circle of 100 meeting, where we're working on a California Green New Deal, and then we'll be working nationally. He laid out everything last Wednesday, these different levels. So I'll get that. It's 30 minutes of about an hour and a half. The rest of it's confidential, but I'm going to get the 30 minutes out and send it to Harvey. He can send it out to you all. It's a really inspiring presentation. So yeah. And Lakota People's Law Project, which is part of the Romero Institute, which has 5 full-time people out in Standing Rock and Pine Ridge, including Madonna Thunderhawk and Chase Iron Eyes and others, did a lot of work, not only on the elections, but on getting Deb into that position. A couple 100,000 emails generated. And so we're really, really pleased about that position. So I'll send that out. Also to tell you, those of you that weren't able to show up for any of the 3 days of programming of the 56th Jubilee of the Selma Bridge Crossing a couple weekends ago, the 5th, 6th, and 7th, most of that is still on YouTube, but we're going to get the entire thing so you can look at it at your leisure. It's about 20, 25 hours of amazing, amazing programming. The first time it's been done virtually, and will probably continue to be done, even though we hope to be on the ground next year in Selma, Alabama. I'm on the national committee with that. And just to know, during the year, there is going to be continuing forums, educational forums, and continuing the film festival. So more about that when we come back in 3 weeks. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, this is again, everybody knows this is a huge deal to have not just an indigenous person, but a person whose activist credentials are so deep, and to have someone like, you know, there's like what, 50,000 employees at the Department of Interior. It's a city, for God's sakes. So we look forward to that. I do want to, and thank you, Tatanka, and thank you for being with us. Charles Moorland, I wanted to recognize you. You came on a little late. We're going to take 2 weeks off. We're going to reconvene March 12th. Have you got an update for us on DC statehood? Go ahead, we're going to unmute you there. And then Mike will unmute Ray Watts also. Okay, you're good, Charles.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I am just happy to be associated with this group. I think there's a whole lot that we can do together. We did have a DC statehood hearing today, a House hearing, where the mayor, Bowser, our chairman, Mendelson, and Eleanor Holmes Norton, and other Democrats led the charge. We're pretty much certain that we're going to pass the bill, HR 51, in the House. But at the hearing today, it is important that the Republicans revealed all of their objections. Most of them, in fact, all of them specious, but the one that they put out front that I want everybody to know is they're claiming that the statehood bill, HR 51, would be unconstitutional. They're also claiming that there would be another option, and that is retrocession to Maryland. Well, we've dealt with these this opposition before. In fact, since 1993, when we were able to deal with all of these objections. For instance, and the mayor and Eleanor Holmes Norton and Congressman Raskin, they all made it clear that there is no constitutional prohibition against statehood. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution gives the Congress absolute, complete control over the District of Columbia. They can do what they want to do with it. Retrocession to Maryland, if you hear anybody bring up that argument, the Congress cannot give the District of Columbia back to the state of Maryland. They cannot do that. So what we're talking about is what the Congress has the power to do. The Congress cannot do that. In order to retrocede the district back to Maryland, of course, Maryland would have to agree to that. So we're looking at what the Congress can do to end taxation without representation. So that issue came up, and moving forward, we want to, as much as we can, put it in the context of ending taxation without representation. That concept is much easier to stand for many people than statehood. Of course, the only way to end taxation without representation in the District of Columbia is to make DC a state.
Well, we certainly 100% with us. I went back and did some reading on how Abraham Lincoln made West Virginia a state. I mean, it was totally unconstitutional.
Right, exactly.
Completely unconstitutional.
Right.
When they made West Virginia a state. States very clearly in the Constitution, you can't make a state out of another state, and they went and did it anyway. So, you know, you got a good argument there. Please put in the chat, Charles, how we can support you and what we need to know, and we'll have you back on March 12th to give us an update, okay? And I will be continuing to mail people, so send me stuff, and I'll put it out through my MailChimp.
Yeah, thank you
Great
so
to
much.
have you on board.
By that time, I expect to have a complete action plan for how this group can best join with us to help the statehood movement, and how we can help you all too, how we can join together to make this happen.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me clarify. Technically, this call is nonpartisan, and that means I have to be nonpartisan, which means I scream at the Democrats for rigging the primaries and at the Republicans for rigging the generals. That's basically how it works in this country. So we are multi-partisan. You are free to be partisan if you want. You are all participants. You don't have to be nonpartisan. And Charles, we look forward. My sister, my niece and nephew all live in DC. I would like them to be full American citizens. So you keep us posted, and come back March 12th, please, and give us the update and the plan. Okay. I also want to welcome Howie Hawkins from the Green Party. Howie, good to see you. And Ray Lutz, I wanted to give you a minute. You are going to continue with your Zoom calls. Ray Lutz, are you there?
Yes, hi. Yes, thank you, Harvey. Ray Lutz with Citizens Oversight. Just to give you a quick update. We've been doing audits of this election, the 2020 general election, using our platform called Audit Engine. I'm just about done with a case study report, which covers 3 counties in Florida, Collier County, Volusia County, and St. Lucie County, 2 ES&S counties and 1 Dominion County. We found a lot of interesting things. Collier County went very, very smooth. Volusia has a number of problems we're still investigating. They initially had 41,000 missing ballot images. They got that fixed, and then we had 4,367 additional ballot images and cast vote record entries. This turns out to be a rescanning that they did to duplicate those, and we don't know which ones are duplicated. And then,
so Ray, but you have Zooms coming up, right?
Yeah, I just want to give everybody a quick overview of these 3 things. And so then, so that's going to be interesting to see how that's done. We're changing our Zoom call probably to Thursday at 2 o'clock instead of Tuesday Thursday at 11. One more thing, if you can give me just one more minute here.
Go ahead.
Looks like we may be doing an audit in Arizona of that. There's a lot of consternation there in Arizona. So we're working there to see if we can help clarify things in Arizona.
Consternation seems to be an understatement. I'm ready to read about a shooting war over the ballots in there. But Ray, if you will put in the chat the link to your Zoom and also put it in our calendar. Remember, we now have a calendar. Anybody wants to post on that calendar, you can do so. We have a couple of people who are running regular chats, and Ray, your chat is great. And so please put in the chat here. I mean, your Zoom is great. Put in the chat how to get to it and put it on the calendar, okay?
All right.
Good. Thank you very much, Ray. Much appreciated. Okay. Does anyone else have something you want to throw in real quick? And then we're going to go to Joel Siegel. And Joel is going to lead into our great program here on the upcoming Save Our Democracy campaign, which we'll have in total tact by March 12th. We have 84 people on the call. So Joel, former chief of staff for John Conyers, godfather to the Affordable Care Act. Something's on your whip there, Joel. Looks like a caterpillar. But if you will tune us in here with Gloria and James and Ray, we'll hear about the great launch here for the Save Our Democracy campaign.
Harvey, thank you for your leadership. You could have retired on that island that you're on, that you're laying out now, but you keep pushing social justice. And Mike Hirsch, thank you.
I was going to retire to 3 Mile Island, but something happened. I couldn't get there.
Well, you should have never gone to Fukuda. That's a whole other story. But Mike Hirsch, thank you for engineering these phone calls, and Steve Caruso, because without your work, we couldn't be doing this. Plus, you're my brothers from another mother. And what I'm going to do is really kind of briefly introduce the Save Our Democracy campaign. This is really a team effort that's being led by Gloria Tinubu and Ray McClendon and James Fukuda. So I'm going to go through some of the basic contours of it, and then they're going to really expand on the actual campaign. And what we were hoping that after we presented, we wanted to hear from everybody on the call. We wanted to hear your ideas, the creativity that you have, because we cannot do this unless it's an extended family relational organizing coalition. That's what Gloria is going to talk about, that, and Ray. So the goals and objectives of the Save Our Democracy campaign, number one is we want to make sure that the 250 voter suppression laws, what we affectionately call the Jim Crow voter suppression laws that are now in 43 states, we're going to have to push back against those laws. And in terms of the kind of the way we're organizing, very, very incredible organizing, but the threshold that we're going to have to reach to push back against these voter suppression laws, which includes passing H.R. 1 and H.R. 4 in Congress, pushing back against the voter suppression laws in the states that they're emanating from. We can't do that with a part-time volunteer movement. We're going to need a fully funded, fully staffed coalition. We want to be able to bring in networks that are already working on voter suppression and GOTV and create an umbrella. We don't want to reinvent any wheels. At the same time, there was a wheel that was invented called the Georgia Miracle. And we want to make sure that those who led the Georgia Miracle, who were integral in its formation and integral in its campaign, now want to reach out to other states and other cities and replicate the Georgia Miracle, especially in the swing states. And we all know that if we do not crush voter suppression and if we don't ramp up the GOTV, we're going to see every 2 years a lot of changes in the Congress, red to blue, red to blue. And the reason why this is so important to everybody is you can't change policy without impacting the policymakers. So if we want to survive climate change, and I know that we're nonpartisan, we can't have in 2 years a far right House or a far right Senate or a president that's far right, because how we organize now will depend on whether we survive as a civilization. It'll depend on whether or not we can end poverty or provide housing or healthcare. So this work is not just about, it is about saving our democracy. It is about protecting our country, which is moving closer and closer to authoritarianism, but also is going to impact policies and, you know, initiatives that are probably dear to most everyone's heart. So, you know, without further ado, I just want to go ahead and, you know, ask the key organizers to, you know, to speak. We're also in deep solidarity with the DC statehood movement. Charles, that's going to be part of our campaign. This campaign came out of this coalition. This campaign is an initiative of this coalition. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and Gloria, I would like for you to, any comments that you want to make on the campaign. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Joel. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I want to thank Joel for bringing me into this, you know, amazing group. And I also want to thank Ray for all the work that he's done in Georgia around voter suppression. It's very interesting that we are at this point in the development of the country in terms of our efforts to have to save our democracy from forces that would disenfranchise voters of all ethnicities. And it sort of takes me back to the founding of this country in the 1619s, when all at once they were creating laws to create a representative democracy, while at the same time they were putting in place laws to solidify white servitude and Black servitude and private property and bride purchase. All of that was inaugurated at the same time as representative democracy, right? So we've always had this confusion about who we are as a country. We've always been sort of schizophrenic, right? And all of that was codified in the Constitution, right? When only white men with property were given the right to vote, while white men without property, women, white women, Black people, other people of color were not denied the right to vote. So we've always had sort of a schizophrenic relationship with this thing we call democracy. And so some 400 years since the establishment of representative democracy and 50 years after the passing of the Voting Rights Act, we're now seeing this assault on our democracy and our rights to vote. And it's an assault on all of us, irrespective of our ethnicity, right? Or race or gender or economic standing. And as Joel said, the over 250 bills fueled by the big lie of voter fraud and financed by major corporations have the potential for destroying our democracy by restricting voter access for all, but especially for people of color, young people and elderly, and people in rural areas. So as we approach the 58th anniversary of Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail, where he says, we should not cooperate with unjust laws. We should refuse to cooperate with them. And he gave us a strategy of how we do that. And I call that the first Georgia miracle. It was Dr. King's strategy of direct action, where we withdraw our cooperation and support for laws that are unjust. And we do that through boycotting and mass demonstrations and protests and that sort of thing. And so we're very serious about implementing that strategy of direct action within Save Our Democracy. The other strategy, the most recent Georgia miracle, is the miracle of relational organizing or relational organization, right? And what we saw happen in Southwest Georgia under the leadership of people like Shirley Sherrod was they used their social capital and to some extent the cultural capital that they had to bring people to the polls, because people identified with them, people trusted them, and were able, even in spite of coronavirus, threatening their lives and well-being, we were able to bring people out and unheard of numbers. And so we need to replicate these efforts. And what we've decided to do with Save Our Democracy is to combine the two Georgia miracles, the first one of direct action and the second one of relational organizing into Save Our Democracy, so that we can amplify what we did in Georgia throughout the country, and for that matter, throughout the world, because what we're talking about is saving democracy, not just for people in the United States, but globally, saving our democracy. We understand that our lives and our situations are not separate and distinct from everyone else, whether we're talking about global changes in terms of climate change, whether we're talking about immigration laws, whether we're talking about freedom, all of it, we're all interconnected. And if we can realize that we are interdependent with each other, that our lives are interdependent, then we can stave off the tool that has historically been used to suppress democracy. And that is dividing people and conquering them, because we've been told that we're different, our interests are not the same. And so we end up fighting against our own collective interests. So with Save Our Democracy, we hope to change all of that. And as Joe says, it's going to require resources. It's going to require a full-time initiative that goes beyond election cycles. Jeffrey, I'll get to you in 1 second. That goes beyond election cycles, right? That in between elections, we are doing the work of organizing and research and teaching people how to work for this democracy that will be around long after we're gone. So this is about putting in place the institutions and the systems that will ensure that democracy will last way beyond our lifetimes, and that our children and grandchildren won't have to continue to revisit these issues, because we would have institutionalized them in such a way that they're not displaceable. Yes, Jeffrey, your question.
Real quick, Jeffrey.
I wanted to follow up on what Joe SEGAL said, and you too, Gloria, right? Gloria,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
Right. Yeah. Isn't well, even if we did all that stuff, it would be useless without education, because as Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said, democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education.
Absolutely.
That's what.
Okay.
So you have a question though, or just a comment?
No, that's good.
So
Thank
a
you,
part
Jeffrey.
of what we will be doing, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. Yes, thank you.
Harvey, a part of what we will be doing on a regular basis is educating. In fact, as we talked this morning about our efforts, we will have some component that look some way similar to the freedom schools that were done during the 60s. We'll call them whatever. They may be interdependent schools, I don't know, so that we can see how our lives are interdependent. But the education component is critical to our success.
Okay,
Absolutely
we have Lynn
right. You're
Feinerman.
on point.
Lynn Feinerman.
Yes, hi, Gloria.
Hi.
I just finished, this is probably a shameless plug, but we're broadcasting a Women Rising radio program this week that profiles election protection activists, one of whom is of course, Andrea Miller. Andrea has started her democracy centers. Are you working with Andrea or aware of those centers? They're very interesting. The first one was established in Hawkinsville, Georgia.
I am not.
I'll
Ray, are
take
you?
that. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, we're very actively working with Andrea Miller and Center for Common Ground and her democracy centers. What we're trying to do is figure out the way to get them into a number of different locations across the Black Belt, as well as in some of the more impoverished and underserved areas of communities in the metro area as well, where we need a much more robust understanding of how our voices being heard will make a difference in individuals' lives, which is one of the big issues that we have in especially in young people of color, to get them out to vote. So yeah, Andrea's become a great partner with us.
Yes, and Andrea's
Yeah,
been a real mainstay of these calls also. Lynn, did
Yeah,
you
I
want
would
to
just like to say that I hope if you guys are really, putting your attention and your great energy towards nationwide organizing in this respect, I would really hope that you will work with Andrea, to put those democracy centers everywhere. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not only rural voters who haven't got a lot of resources, who desperately need to be educated as to how to approach their elected officials, et cetera.
We're on it.
And
We're on
Elsa
it.
Schaefer
Right.
has mentioned those as well.
Right.
Joel, did you want to proceed? Gloria?
I just wanted to say
yes.
the power of this organization will be in the ability of us to collaborate with other organizations, right? So to the extent that there are centers like Andrea's that are already in place, we simply collaborate, work with her to put those in as many places as possible. So this is not about reinventing the wheel. This is about creating more power through collaboration.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I want to point out there's 92 people on call. Joel, did you want to proceed with James and Ray?
Gloria, thank you very much. And
Gloria, you're fabulous. It's an honor to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
nice to have a distinguished professor of microeconomics from Spelman too. But as humble as she is, she really was integral in the Georgia miracle, and really I will be able to teach it to a lot of folks. So yeah, and next I just want to call on James Fukuda, president of LULAC at New Jersey, very influential in Congress. James very connected to a lot of the liberals and progressives in the Congress and mayors across the country. He's very humble about it, but James is highly influential and actually an architect of a lot of different campaigns that he's kind of quiet about. But James is going to talk about setting up the Blue-Green Foundation so we can actually implement and fund our campaign. Go ahead, James, and welcome, James. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for being on with us.
Thank you, Harvey, Joel. So it's really simple, folks. We're in a war. We're in a war, and we have no choice but to win this war. Because if we don't win this war, then we might as well put our hands up now and take the chains. It'll be a lot less painful. So, like they said in Black Panther, right? We can either submit to slavery, or we can jump off the boat and join all those who would not submit. That's where we are, because this is about white supremacy, and this is about pushing the clock back 100 years. Right now, just to keep a very small goal, which is still amazingly ambitious, there are a number of Senate races that can be won by the more progressive side if we can protect the election laws there. Ohio's in play, Georgia's in play, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Missouri and Alabama, not so much. And depending what Grassley and Robinson do, maybe Iowa and Wisconsin. So we have a chance for victory, right? It's not as big as it would seem. And that's largely thanks to Gloria, Ray, and others in Georgia who showed us that despite long odds, with a lot of hard work, it's possible. So my contribution in all this is to help structure it so that it's legal, so that people stay out of trouble, and to put a format in place that makes it easy to raise money, because wars are not won without resources. Harvey probably knows that better than anyone here. Harvey, how many wars were won by the side that didn't have resources?
Just a couple. Well, the resource we have is everybody on this call. We're over 90 now. And James, you've been a great inspiration. So,
well, thank you. But that's pretty much it, folks. I mean, we'll set up twin organizations. One that's will be tax deductible and can raise money for the education component of it, the giving water bottles component of it, the bailing people out when they give water bottles part of it. And then we'll have the non-tax deductible advocacy part, which will be doing the politics, which is the C4. We look forward to meeting all of you week after week here on Solartopia. And with that, I'll punt it over.
Thank you. Well, I want to say, James, we have a couple hands up. We're going to have to develop a legal defense for giving people water while they're standing in line. I don't think there has ever been in American history a bill that forbids giving people food and water while they're standing outside in the rain. That is a remarkable innovation and a sign of desperation. I want to call on Rebecca Landau, and then
Harvey, we didn't get a chance to hear from Ray.
Do you want Rebecca? Can you hold your question to and Danette till after Ray speaks? Okay, that's great. Okay, Ray McClendon, great to see you, man.
Hey, always a pleasure, Harvey. It's great to be with all my comrades in solidarity on these issues. Save Our Democracy truly is being birthed by this organization in response to the tremendous support from around the country that you all and others provided to Georgia, and for the absolute need to combat this initially across these voter suppression, gerrymandering tactics of Jim Crow across first the battleground states, then nationally, and as Gloria said, indeed to let democracy and freedom ring across the entire globe through the strategy of relational organizing, which the Georgia Miracle is a component of. You know, a part of relational organizing, as was put forth here in Georgia, was that social and cultural capital that Gloria talked about, that I really want us to connect with, because it is strong in our communities, and the organizations that we collaborated with. You could go into any town and at least one or two of the members of that town would have been leaders in that town would have been members of the organizations that were a part of the coalition. And you'll see that in many of these states. The problem is that they have been separate. We want to organize around that strategy in these states. We want to teach it. We want to have the academics to come in and do rigorous research to confirm what we know anecdotally, and to provide the evidence so we can move forward and make sure that voices are heard. Now, all of the other things that we want to talk about, everything that has been shared, from voter suppression, gerrymandering, the challenges around redistricting, to the global issues that we want to see dealt with, it all still fundamentally comes back to protecting the sanctity of one person, one vote, and that our voice is manifest in our vote. That's what we want to bring back. This is not bring that to the forefront. And finally, as you all know, we are about democracy versus the authoritarian leans of the other party that is pushing this. And so this is really about those who are lovers of democracy versus those who would let us devolve into authoritarianism. So from that standpoint, it's nonpartisan. It goes beyond, this is beyond party. And we're delighted to have the support. We want to thank Harvey for all that you've done to support getting us to a point where we are close to launching this, and certainly want to thank the other conveners and steering committee members, many of whom you will begin to hear more from in the academic community. We have folks from, as Joel had said, from Yale, from George Mason University. We'll be bringing some HBCU leadership onto that academic committee as well. So we're excited about this. And let me tell you something about Gloria Tinubu. She's very humble, but you know, she has a PhD in economics. She actually taught Stacey Abrams at Spelman College. She has tremendous credentials as a local elected official and has run for Congress. So she's steeped in the presence of what voting means to democracy on a grassroots level. So we're just delighted to have someone like her who has one foot that's in the higher echelons of the academic community, but also was involved in the grassroots activity from the Black Belt of Georgia that can help to make sure that what we come up with is not an elitist program, but is one that is steeped in the rich tradition of what it takes to get folks out to vote in communities of color. So we just want to thank everybody, and with that, we'll open it up for any more questions.
All right, we got some great people here. Danette, and then Rebecca. Danette?
Hi, thank you. I actually just wanted to mention that, you know, we were talking about getting experience calling your representatives. PDA is doing a liaison program if anyone's interested. I know Elsa kicks butt. She's on the call today. She's so awesome. She knows all like what to do. So if you ever need any training, she's the one to go to. But I will put the link in the chat if anyone's interested in signing up. We still have a few holes to fill around the country, and it's super educational and fun. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Rebecca Landau?
This is just a quick technical question for Dr. Tinubu and Ray and Joel. Zoe Stein was the head of OSSOF's relational organizing. That was a $1.6 million program. That was where they actually paid people locally. And that relational organizing was developed and came out of the congressional race from Arizona. Right now, she's for a favor for the Giffords. She's running the Cincinnati mayor's campaign. That's a shout out for Gabby Becktrop too. But are you looking for, I'm a digital organizer, so are you looking for people who've done this kind of work? I mean, at the end of Ossoff's program, as the same, it was the end of Andrew's program, you know, we had field organizers. They came out, they were paid, and they were field organizers ready to move on. So who is the contact, and do you need someone like that? Are you at that point with the umbrella and the framework? And are we starting to like, you know, and who should we liaison and to send that information to you? Because I'm connected to those kind of real on the ground people who run these programs.
Sure, that's a great point. You can just coordinate with me. I'll put my email in the chat. You can coordinate with me. We certainly want to have a digital component to go along with this as well. You know, as we build this out, but we're at the point right now of putting together what Gloria wanted to do was help to frame the mission and vision and the broad strategy. And then we'll begin to build out silos like the tech part of relational organizing down the road. We're not ready for that yet, but we certainly want to get into the how-tos of that with folks like you have as well, and especially with people who did it at that level for ourselves. Campaign would be helpful as we write up the post-mortem on how to execute that.
Let me try to follow up on what Ray
Go
said.
ahead, Joel.
I'm sorry. I'm digital. She was on the ground, just to put that out there. So she was a real architect. I'll send that to you.
Yeah, Rebecca, it's nice to meet you. I'm Joel, and Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up your colleague because we're gonna have to find each other. So there's people all over the country who are already doing this, but we are a beloved community. We want to make sure that, you know, people are professional, they're kind to each other. You can't win a political battle unless you have that beloved community.
Well,
But we need-
that's why these people are so good, Joel, because they understand that like local paid organizers
Yes.
who are well-trained, who can then go on to do municipal. And so they've already had that framework. So I just want to connect. If somebody gives me an email, I'll just get them on to you.
Ray, can you
Well-
put your email
In the
on?
chat. It's in the
Got
chat.
it. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
And
you,
Rebecca, Rebecca, what you're saying is critical. It's
Yes.
critical. So thank you for that. And we need all of that, digital and on the ground. So I sent you my email earlier. So let's please, connect.
Thank
Send me
you.
yours.
Can you share with us your email too, Gloria?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yes, and Joy Bunton has asked, how do we sign up for the Save Our Democracy campaign?
We're gonna have a website. We're gonna put the website on grassroots.EP.org, and we're gonna be working with Michael and Steve and others. We do need a little more financial support, but this call is not to ask you for financial support, but we're gonna be seeking it because just doing work to set up a website is gonna cost. But we do have some volunteers to help us at the beginning. That'll be up in a few weeks. Once that's up, you'll definitely be able to know how to help. But in the meantime, if you can email Ray or Gloria, just so we can start conversations with each other and what Gloria and Ray called relational organizing, we're going to have to begin to relate with each other as family. Thanks.
Okay. Jeffrey again, quick, please.
This is for Ray. You on, Ray?
Yeah, he's
I'm here.
All right. Remember when you talked about the democracy situation in Georgia last week or the week before?
I don't.
Go ahead.
What? Go ahead and ask the question.
All right. I just wanted to say that. Well, I just wanted to say that, I thought that after what Trump and his supporters did in Georgia, after it turned Democratic blue, the red Republicans in Georgia would have had a change of heart and start serving the people again instead of themselves. So how come they're not?
Well, because that's not the Republican way. They, as you know from their leader, they not only double but triple and quadruple down. So not only is for every action is there an opposite and equal reaction, but there is a quintupling of that action. What I mean by that is that we know that these voter suppression measures started based upon the big lie. And instead of saying that they would use remember when the Republicans put out this post-mortem after Romney lost in 2012? Look at where they are today compared to 2013 when that report came out. So they have no intention of going back to expand the tent. They believe in restricting and reducing the tent in order to disproportionately give white voters and white supremacy more of a voice. We don't expect anything any different. And because we have not paid as much attention to to the statewide races in many of the southern states, they have these tremendous majorities, so they can essentially do what they want to do. And we're going to have to contend with that. And that's why this is going to be more like a 4 to 6 year cycle to save our democracy, because we're going to have to pay more attention to state level races than we have in the past in order to begin to turn some of this around. So they are going in the opposite direction that you would assume someone who lost would go, which is, what do I need to do to expand? No, they're looking at, what do I need to restrict in order for my narrowing minority to continue to control power, which is why it's Jim Crow, as Stacey Abrams calls it, Jim Crow with a suit and tie on.
Yes. Can you give us, Ray, an update on the current situation with the Jim Crow legislation
Sure,
in Georgia?
sure. Just real quickly, there is SB 241 has passed the Senate and is now in the House. HB 531 passed the House and is now in the Senate. We've gone over what those bills are. They're just blanket voter suppression bills. Some of the points Harvey and others and James Fukuda have already made, like something as egregious as making it a crime to give someone a bottle of water when they're standing in line to vote, restricting weekend voting and particularly Sunday voting when most Black communities do souls to the polls, and in one instance completely eliminating no excuse early voting, and the list goes on and on. They have now in the Senate introduced another bill, SB 202, which just adds another layer to those two omnibus bills. Now, we are battling those. We've made some progress to eliminate some of the more onerous provisions, but make no mistake, these bills are all bad. They're going to have a negative impact on the ability of people of color and low income people to vote. And they will pass, and it just is going to make our work even harder. But it just means that we're going to have the resolve to start working earlier in the election cycle. And that's why entities like election protection and like Save Our Democracy will be, to recognize that we have got to be in what Gloria calls direct action mode year round, and not just 3 or 4 months out from an election.
Well, you mentioned in the last call, I'm sorry, Ruth Strauss, did you want to jump in, and then I'll ask you a question, Ray? But Ruth?
Yeah, Ray, please repeat that again. I mean, the exact bills, because we should all be not only, you know, writing our representatives and senators and calling them, but getting other people to do the same. So would you mind repeating what you just said?
Sure.
The two bills, 541.
If Elsa is on, she can put that in. If Elsa's on, please put in the chat the phone banking that the Center for Common Ground and their affiliates are doing an extraordinary job of working both with in-state citizens to contact their representatives directly, but also giving a way for non-residents to be able to get involved by having a phone bank where they're calling Georgia voters and connecting them directly in with their respective state senators and House representatives.
Perfect.
So that's available, and it's something that we can all participate in right now. However, like I said, we're going to continue to bang them with it to let them know we're here and we don't like it. We're also, a great suggestion that Gloria made is we've started to a direct action with corporations that have supported the politicians that are sponsors of this vote. We've had protests out in front of the World of Coca-Cola. We have had campaigns to email the CEOs of all of the Fortune 500 companies that have headquarters or major regional presence in Georgia. We are working right now to send out letters from the Atlanta NAACP to these CEOs demanding face-to-face meetings. So that is going to continue. But nevertheless, we still expect that the bill will pass. And so we've got to be as relentless as they are. And that's another reason why we are creating the Save Our Democracy campaign.
Elsa, you wanted to jump in real quick, Elsa?
I was just going to say, by the way, I am putting that link in now, but I'm halfway through. We take credit for having had them pause the Senate Bill 241 that went over to the House. They couldn't just pass it on through. They had to take out, I'm going to use the wrong language, but the equivalent of, somebody's not muted. They had to take out the equivalent of eliminating early voting, which when early voting first started in Georgia this time, the lines were around the block. And they had never had that happen before. Usually it's the last 2 days when people get around to voting, around the block. And so there was so much pushback. So our lists, we're calling people who did vote by mail and early voting to say, your legislators are trying to stop that now. And we do, as Ray said, patch them straight through to that office. And if it's on a weekend, it goes to voicemail, so they at least get the message. They had to take out one of the most egregious elements. But as Ray noted, there are 14 to 20 egregious elements in those. So we have serious work ahead. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Laura, and then Brian, and then Dorothy. Dr. Laura?
Yeah, yep, here. I have a question for Ray, and that is, Ray, who's gearing up to sue, and like the ACLU, Common Cause, or are they coming all together? Because I'm just got a bad feeling that these are going to pass, and we're going to have to hit them in court. And Ray, do you think they want these lawsuits to go to the Supreme Court? Is there an underhanded agenda here? There is an underhanded agenda, but about moving it towards the Supreme Court. Thanks.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there will be legal action, probably by a number of different groups, including the ACLU, including the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and others, because of the disparate impact that this will have on certain elements of the voting population. So I think that will occur. And I don't know if it is their end game necessarily that it would go to the Supreme Court. I think the end game on the Supreme Court is going to be either HR 1 at the federal level, or HR 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So I think those are the ones that they're looking to get overturned. Because if we, as we've said, many people have said on this call in the past, HR 1 trumps all of this stuff. So or at least 95% of it. But so we still have a fallback on HR 1. Which is a whole another level of action that many of us, including the Center for Common Ground, are working daily on. So, and I know they will take that to the Supreme Court. Many of the state attorneys generals are already lining up to do that if it indeed does pass.
So you can, thank you, everybody. Thank you for doing the recording. We will continue with this for another 20 minutes. And
before you stop the recording?
Richard Rose of the NAACP in Atlanta, and then we'll go back to Charles. Richard Rose, how you doing?